TNKR Media.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Salt Lake Podcast. I'm Lesley Chesterman, and I'm here with my co-host and fellow vanilla lover, David McMillan.
Hi, I'm here. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited about today's guest, David Vanderwald, who is the director of Aust Hachmann, which is, I believe, one of the largest vanilla importers, brokers. We will get into that with David. But I want to say that I really wanted to bring David Vanderwald on because I think of all the people I interviewed over many years of being a food journalist is that I think he might have been right up there as one of the most interesting. And he's also right in our backyard here in Montreal. And sometimes we don't know who is in our own city doing amazing things. So I hope everybody is excited as I am. And I know you are too, David. You've been reading up on vanilla. I went to David's warehouse in 2017. And just when he opened the warehouse doors, the smell of vanilla almost knocked me over. It's an incredible thing. I mean, anyway, let's bring David on. So hi, David. Welcome to the Salt Lake Podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
You know, it's been a long time since we saw each other, but I think I only just finished the vanilla beans that you gave me the day that I visited you. And I was just telling David last night that after I used them, I put them in sugar, I made vanilla extract with them, all kinds of things, because we're talking about a very precious and sometimes very rare and expensive ingredient that I think all home cooks and chefs really love. And you're somebody who's lived your life surrounded by vanilla. So can you tell us how you got into this company or profession?
It's kind of an odd story because I used to work with my father in the export business, and that kind of wasn't going so great when one of the companies we represented went bankrupt, and he decided to go back up north, and he left the business to me, and it was just basically failing, and I was looking for something to do, and a friend of mine told me that he knew of a company in Hamburg, Germany, that was looking for a representative for their vanilla business here in North America. So I said, my father's family actually came from Hamburg, so it piqued my interest. I said, oh, okay, Hamburg, I've never been there, and maybe I should go over and meet this individual. And I eventually did that. And his company, Aust Hachmann Hamburg, has actually existed since 1881. He's technically the oldest vanilla company in the world. And he also only does vanilla, and he hadn't really done anything in the North American market. So he was looking for a rep in North America because at that time, and this is like the mid 90s, previous to that, there was a cartel on vanilla out of Madagascar. And it was controlled by just a small group of companies and the government down there. And that had been broken because the IMF put pressure on Madagascar to stop this cartel business. They had to open up the market, which they did that with a number of underdeveloped countries. So when that happened, my partner today, the company in Hamburg, who was part of that cartel, he realized he needed to get some representation in North America. So consequently, I met him and got to know the business a bit, because for me, I knew about vanilla beans already because I saw them in my home cooking, and also my grandparents who came from Hamburg, for them using a vanilla bean to make vanilla sauce or creme anglaise or whatever was very, very common already, not so much here in North America. So I met this gentleman, and I worked for a couple of years as an agent. Just basically, I would find companies in North America that needed vanilla, because this breaking of the cartel caused a real sensation in the flavor industry. So there was, when I came along and started offering vanilla, they were like, wow, I guess the cartel really is broken, because where did you come from, and so on and so forth. So we made a few sales that way, kind of like as a broker. And then I realized that the market here was completely underdeveloped. There was hardly any vanilla beans at all available at retail. People didn't even know what it was.
I got to say, I don't know about David, but the first time I think I saw vanilla bean was at cooking school in 1989. David, when did you first see a vanilla bean in Montreal?
Yeah, they were kind of rare. I remember the first times we got to see vanilla beans. They used to be sold in a glass tube at fancy grocery stores.
They still are.
And they were like $18 or something like that, even back then. Or, we grew up cooking with vanilla extract, to be honest.
Often artificial. Yeah. At cooking school, we had big bottles of white artificial extract. And then second year pastry, they pulled out a vanilla bean and we all gathered around and looked at it. Ooh, But I was just wondering also, David, if you could give us an idea of the years you're talking about with the vanilla cartel in Madagascar and all that. What is the 80s?
Yeah, that would be the 80s and 90s. That was I mean, I don't want to get into that too much. That's a whole history in itself. But that was basically the Madagascar government appointing, like I said, a dozen or so companies around the world. There was 3 in the US, not even a dozen, maybe 8 or 10, and they would get together every year at a hotel called the Bedford in Paris, right next to Madeleine, and they would sit there basically and decide which part of the world got how much vanilla, and that would take a few hours. Then they'd spend the rest of the week going to restaurants and having a great time. It was all, and this, to the great annoyance of a lot of the industrial companies who were forced literally to buy from these people according to geographically where they were located. But all that came to an end because the IMF was lending money to Madagascar, and they were under a lot of pressure to say, look, you can't, this is old school cartel business. You can't do this anymore. You got to open up the market to anybody and stop fixing the price, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what they did.
When you're talking about industrialists, what companies are we looking at? Like Coca-Cola? There must be some perfume makers. Who outside of, let's say, restaurants are using vanilla?
Just it's important to understand. You hear everybody on the show, I guess, is more familiar with the gourmet vanilla bean, the black, beautiful, lustrous, plump vanilla bean. But that vanilla bean is a small percentage of the global vanilla market. What really drives vanilla is the industrial market. And the industrial market is primarily flavor companies and secondarily fragrance companies. And the flavor companies, I will mention them to you now, and I'm pretty sure you haven't heard of any of them, but they're well known. There's Virginia Dare, there's Simrise, there's Givaudet you might have heard of. Nielsen Massey you might have heard of because they have a retail product that you see in the supermarkets. There's a number of mid-sized companies. There's a couple of giants like McCormick. There's Hasegawa in Japan. There's flavor companies all over the world, large, medium, and small. And a lot of them specialize in vanilla amongst other flavors. And they need vanilla beans to make their vanilla flavors. It's as simple as that. Not necessarily Madagascar vanilla beans, but they have to be industrial grade vanilla beans, which are drier. They're less attractive, but possibly technically superior even to gourmet vanilla beans. If I showed a consumer a red split vanilla beans from Madagascar, which could be an incredible quality, they would not buy it because it looks ugly. It's like the unattractive tomato and the perfect tomato. The unattractive one always tastes better. But the perfect, it's the same. That's not to say that gourmet vanilla can't be of an excellent quality. Yes, for the application it's being used, it's a great quality. That means going directly into the recipe. But industrial vanilla is one step away. It has to be processed either into an extract or an oleo resin or any number of flavoring compounds before it gets put into the food product, which could be anything from a yogurt to an ice cream to a nutritional bar, et cetera, et cetera. You've seen all the vanilla products that are out in the supermarket. I don't have to tell you.
And then there are perfume companies as well? The
fragrance aspect is a much smaller portion of the vanilla business, still very important, but those guys will buy anything. Fragrance is all about experimentation and finding that right, perfect formula and then sticking with it forever, like Chanel No. 5, which has vanilla, by the way. So those guys could use Madagascar, they could use Tahiti, they could use Papua New Guinea, Indonesia. They could find an exotic vanilla from Costa Rica or Tonga, and they don't need a lot to make that. And if they find a successful formula, they're going to go direct to origin, try to buy that plantation, and make a long-term arrangement with whoever has this vanilla that gives the perfect note. So that's fragrance. I don't touch that. Some of the vanilla I sell might end up in the fragrance industry, but most of the industrial that we sell goes to the flavor industry.
Can you back up sorry, because I got you off the tangent of how you started your company. So when you, after going to Hamburg and meeting everybody, what was the next step for you?
Well, the next step was to open up a company because I was tired of working as an agent, making a paltry commission, I might say, and for all the work we were doing. And I told my partner, I said, look, we have an opportunity here to make a company. Let's go 50-50. and I'll provide all the office space and the personnel and what have you, and we'll develop the market. All you have to do is supply me the vanilla and get it from me from Origin, because he had all the contacts at Origin, and we did that, and we formed Aust Hachmann Canada Limited. I think it was 1992, somewhere around there. We're coming up to our 30th, maybe 94. I'm not sure exactly what year exactly we went, because I operated under a different name for a couple of years when I was the agent. But now Aust Hachmann Canada was formed. And eventually we grew to be much bigger in terms of volume than Hamburg, because Hamburg specialized in the European market. And you've been to Europe. You guys know that when you go into a European supermarket, it's not the same as North America. You will see vanilla beans. You will see all sorts of raw material spicing and stuff in profusion that you don't see here, because they cook, let's be honest, they cook at another level than we do, even at home. So Hamburg sells vanilla powder. They have 3 gigantic mills that grind vanilla into a powder, which is very, very good for baking. And that's very, very important in the European market. They put the vanilla beans in glass tubes, which you see here, but over there, you see it more than you see vanilla extract in bottles. It's the number 1 choice is vanilla. Number 2 choice is extract. It's the other way around here. They also do vanilla sugars and all these type of specialty products with fancy packaging. That's their business. They do some industrial, but not like us. We, in turn, here at Aust Hachmann Canada, we have some of that. We've tried some of those fancy European retail products. They don't really work here. We have the glass tubes. We are going to introduce a small bottle organic vanilla extract very soon to the retail market. Don't tell anybody. And but for the most part, we are industrial. And we do volume. We specialize in volume. And just to give you an idea, and I'm not flexing here, but it's an interesting fact. Last year, 2024, sorry, we purchased 550 tons of vanilla from Madagascar. That made us the biggest buyer of Madagascar in 2024 globally.
So you're saying that, and all of this vanilla goes through your warehouse in Montreal?
All of this vanilla goes through, continues to go through, and will continue to go through, because some of this vanilla was to cover contracts a year and a half in advance. Yes, that's correct.
So what percentage of the world's vanilla goes through Montreal?
Well, in 2024, you would have to say Madagascar, because I'm not very strong in Indonesia, but Madagascar, which I would guess 20% at least.
Wow, that's amazing.
But that goes up and down year to year.
So let me ask you another question, just maybe for the listeners. What are the vanilla producing countries?
Okay, number 1 is Madagascar by far, dominant. Number 2, for quite a while, has been Indonesia. They were actually close to number 1 for a while, but that didn't last. And then now Indonesia seems to be losing market share to Uganda. So there's a battle between second and third between Uganda and Indonesia. And I think it's going to, in the long run, it's going to be Uganda that wins out. And then you go to Papua New Guinea. Those are really the 4 producing countries that produce over 100 to 200 tons each or more per year. Then you get smaller specialities like Tahiti, French Polynesia, Comoro Islands, La Réunion. You do have some speciality production going on in different parts of the world. A lot of that is almost made to order. The people who produce that vanilla, they find specific clients who stick with them year after year, or you see it sold into the tourist industry. And that's another industry where I'm sure many of your listeners have seen vanilla, for example, when they go to Mexico or the Dominican Republic or Cuba, and they see these gigantic bottles of extract at impossibly cheap prices at the airport. Well, I would encourage them not to buy that extract, but it is a product which has always been associated with the tropics, regardless of where you go.
So I was reading up, and I thought that you maybe could shed a bit of light or whatever you know on it. I was amazed to find out that vanilla, if you would have asked me this yesterday morning, I would have said it was native to Madagascar, native to Indonesia. And I read that it's a Mesoamerican thing.
Yeah, the Aztecs. The Aztecs gave us vanilla, and they gave us cocoa, chocolate.
Yeah.
And we promptly wiped them out.
Yeah, and it was Cortez who actually brought it across the pond to
that's correct.
Back to Spain. Cortez the killer himself.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Yes.
So around 1600, people started using vanilla in Europe, what it seems like from what I see here.
Yes, and a very exotic type of thing. I think they were actually mixing it with cocoa to take out the bitterness of the cocoa to have a drink, not cocoa, not chocolate milk, but just like a cocoa type of infused drink. And there was all sorts of theories about how it affected the natives and the superpowers and all that type of stuff. But yes, that's correct. It came from Mexico originally.
But today Mexico is a smaller producer.
Today Mexico has gone from a one-time significant producer to a tiny artisanal producer.
Wow. And that's one of the reasons you told me, I remember you telling me years ago that's why it's kind of a scam that you're seeing these massive amounts of vanilla for sale, extract for sale in the airport, because you told me they couldn't produce enough to produce that much extract.
Look, if you don't see vanilla beans being sold at that airport, then you can be pretty sure that the extract is not very good. And if the vanilla beans are being sold at the airport, they probably come somewhere else. Because if you go to Guadeloupe, for example, there are French people who bring in vanilla beans to Guadeloupe and Martinique, and they sell it throughout the Caribbean islands just as vanilla beans. And the tourists will go to the market in let's say Grenada, and you see vanilla beans. Oh, wow, these must be grown in Grenada. No, they're probably grown in Madagascar. They've come through this guy who's living in Guadeloupe. I think his name is Mr. Vanilla David something or other, and he sells to the Caribbean. So people find their different niche markets. There's I don't know if you've been to Costa Rica, Manuel Ortiz National Park. There's a guy nearby. He's a former Peace Corps guy who discovered vanilla when he went to Madagascar, because there's also always Peace Corps people there. Came to Costa Rica, started planting vanilla on the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. He has a nice little vanilla farm set up, cocoa, all sorts of nice little crops set up. And he has a boutique, little bottles, retail for the tourists. He brings tourist buses there all the time. He's got himself a great little business in one of the most beautiful parts of the world, pure fantasy. I showed up there with my family one day just to see. I'd heard about this place because when vanilla prices were very expensive, he made a few sales to the States. I show up there with my family. And by that time, the company was known in the business. And the guy he avoided me. He didn't want to see me. He was afraid I was going to come there and copycat what he was doing. And somehow, because I saw what he was doing and I was so impressed. I said, man, these are beautiful vines and all this packaging and buses coming every day with tourists buying all this stuff. I was just going to say, good for you. But he completely avoided me. He wasn't there. He wasn't there the day we went, because I'd called in advance, and his helper kind of showed us around. And then he called me and said he was sorry he couldn't make it. He would come by the hotel. He never showed up. And I could only assume he was worried. But I was just...
He didn't want you to call bullshit on a scam.
I was full of admiration. And he's still there, man. It's a very nice little setup. Good for him.
Yeah.
Is there a reason in Mexico they stopped producing vanilla? Because, there's the space, there's the climate, there's a history. Yep.
Look, the sad part of all this is Madagascar is the dominant producer, not only because they make the best vanilla, but because they're one of the poorest countries in the world. And vanilla being extremely labor intensive means that, they can compete at almost any level of price. Whereas in Mexico, which probably has a standard of living 10 times better than Madagascar, they need today, for example, I can buy in Madagascar, I shouldn't tell you this, but I can buy in Madagascar gourmet, the very, very best gourmet vanilla at $50 a kilo US. So let's say 65 Canadian a kilo, $65 Canadian a kilo for about 175 vanilla beans. So it's about 30 cents a bean.
Wow.
You got to buy by the ton when you're buying it that way. And you got to know who you're buying it from. You will not get vanilla in Mexico for less than $200 to $300 a kilo. You will not get vanilla in French Polynesia for less than 500 US a kilo. Now, the reason that is, and David, French Polynesian Tahitian vanilla, that's a very different animal. It's extremely floral. It's got a heliotropic, strong note, but it's very desirable amongst certain chefs for certain types of recipes. It's very desirable for perfumists, and of course, tourists who go to Tahiti. They buy vanilla beans. That's one of the things you buy when you go to Tahiti, and you see it at the airports. But their entire production is only about 25 tons.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, that vanilla.
They don't care, because they're selling that at about 400,000 to 500,000 euros a ton. There's 3 exporters, and they have a cartel,
right?
And it works. They don't want to grow. They're quite happy But when I started in this business, I was selling a lot of vanilla from French Polynesia, but now they're completely priced out of the market.
And when you're selling, who are you selling to?
Most of what I sell in terms of volume is to flavor companies, the ones I mentioned earlier.
But is this in North America?
And they're buying beans. They're buying packs of beans.
They're buying 25 kilo boxes of industrial grade vanilla beans. There's a variety of grades, which are all based on the vanillin levels that depending on their formulations. And they are producing extracts in gigantic stainless steel 1,000-gallon tanks. And they're selling their extracts to the Nestle's and the Unilevers and all the industrial food producers out there. Well, there's not that many, actually. I mean, most of what you see in the supermarkets is controlled by about 5 conglomerates these days. And yeah, but for example, it's a well-known fact that Häagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream, for some reason, their formulation, they prefer the split Madagascar vanilla bean, which is a more mature, reddish vanilla bean, as opposed to the whole, which is unsplit. They're both the same price, and they're usually available equally, but if you want to buy 10 tons, you got to buy 10 of each, because no one's going to give you 10 tons of only split. So, but just to say that Häagen-Dazs, they want that split vanilla bean for their formulation. They've never wavered from that. Even when vanilla was really expensive, they continued to do it. There's a reason why, and this is my opinion, in terms of supermarket ice cream, not regional producers, but like global producers, I don't think anybody can touch Häagen-Dazs in terms of quality. That's my opinion. Because their vanilla ice cream, not their vanilla bean ice cream, their vanilla ice cream is truly authentic. It really is.
I agree. I second that.
It's not very good for you, but it's truly authentic.
I second that. Now, you mentioned the big word in the vanilla world, which is price. So we've seen vanilla go up and down. Right now, I think it's gone down a bit. But I remember when I met you in 2017, it was hugely expensive.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about the price fluctuations of vanilla?
Well, that's actually the Achilles heel of vanilla, is the fact that the growing cycle for vanilla is 4 to 5 years from the time that you first of all, nobody grows from seed. They grow from cuttings. So when you start putting cuttings in the ground, you can expect your first flowers in 3 years, and only in the 4th year will you get any type of significant production. One mature vanilla vine produces anywhere from 750 grams to a kilo of green vanilla beans, okay? And you need 6 kilos of green to make 1 kilo of dry. So basically you need 6 operating vanilla beans to produce a kilo of dry vanilla. So just imagine, just when you're talking hundreds of tons of vanilla, you're talking hundreds of thousands, literally millions of vanilla vines all through Madagascar. Some of these vines are more recent, some are older vines, because they will go for about 15 years before they start to go wild or peter out. So during this cycle, and I'll explain exactly what happened. The market right now, we're very low. We are at almost record low prices for vanilla. When I say low, industrial prices. So the current price for the lowest grade industrial vanilla bean in Madagascar is about $20 a kilo. That same quality in 2016, 17, as you referenced, sold for $400 a kilo, US dollars. Okay.
Wow.
So you can have a 40 times increase in price over a relatively short period of time. And what happens when the prices start to go up, and they will go up, nobody knows exactly when, because it's very difficult to judge what the worldwide inventories are. And what happens, prices are going to go, they're low now. They've been low for a year. They're probably going to stay low for several years. People lose interest at origin. They stop growing. They let their plantations run wild. In some cases, they rip out the vines because they just haven't got, these are poor farmers in many instances. They can't afford to have a crop that's not giving them any money, so they do something else. In Madagascar, in the vanilla region, you have coffee, you have cocoa, you have cinnamon, you have cloves. A lot of them do rotational farming. So prices go up like crazy because people lose interest in growing and production starts to go down. You have other things that can make production go down. A gigantic cyclone can hit Madagascar. That happens quite often. You have vine disease, which is known as fusarium, which can wipe out vanilla plantations very quickly. Once it's in a plantation, that's it. That plantation is done. You have to rip out the vines and go somewhere else. That tends to happen in Madagascar under certain weather conditions. So all these things will affect production. Production goes down, prices go up. Now, as prices go up, and this is where it gets interesting, some of these industrial end users, if they can't get their raw material, they start to get pretty nasty because there are products like Coca-Cola, for example, like Chanel No. 5, very important products that need their vanilla at whatever cost. So prices start to go up. The people in Madagascar start to say, hey, you know what? You're going to have to start paying me in advance, or I'm not going to give you vanilla because this guy here, he wants to pay me in advance. So you get this whole phenomena of pre-financing that starts, which is a disaster. When that starts, these guys have their money. They don't pay as much attention to quality. They start picking the beans too early because they can't afford to wait because there's a lot of theft, because when prices are high, the plantations, the government, they can't rely on the government to protect the plantation. So all these things start to feed into this whole cycle of prices going up. And as the prices go up, and this is something that's really special for vanilla, the quality goes down. So when prices are really high, quality is usually terrible, okay? In Madagascar. I'm always talking about Madagascar because that's what drives the market.
Right.
So then you get to prices being stupidly high, 500, 600 a kilo for grade 1, 400 a kilo for grade 2. Like one box of my vanilla in the back is like 15,000 US dollars. It's ridiculous. I can't ship anything by sea because the shipping companies won't accept it. It's too valuable. They don't want to have $5 million or $6 million in one 20-foot container. Forget it. So it all has to come by air, and it's just a friggin' nightmare. And of course, these industrial players keep feeding money to Madagascar to get their vanilla and making things until the whole thing finally just cracks. And that's usually at around $500 or $600 a kilo. And if you're paying attention at the supermarket, you will notice suddenly less vanilla ice cream. At one point during the crisis in 2002, 2003, you couldn't get Häagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream. You will see people changing their formulations. Suddenly the Häagen-Dazs doesn't taste quite as strong anymore. Suddenly this vanilla product, it doesn't taste quite the same. Or the gourmet vanilla beans you buy are going moldy suddenly, or they're not, all this is all attributed to a short market and high prices.
How do you manage that though? How does you in Hamburg, is that just the art of your business, is knowing the ups and downs? And
yes, no, I've literally been here wiping vanilla beans with alcohol to get the mold spots off, and we've had to send vanilla for special treatment and irradiation and all sorts of. And of course, when the quality goes down, other things start to happen, like mold, like insects, because vanilla, when it's the right quality, it's a natural mold inhibitor, and insects don't touch it because of the very strong essential oils, and they just don't. You're more likely to have an insect eating the carton than doing anything on the vanilla inside coming out of Madagascar. So all these things start to happen when the quality goes down. And that eventually people just say enough, and they buy less, and demand collapses. And like we saw in 2004, suddenly the price of vanilla goes from $500 to $50 a kilo in 1 year. And that actually almost bankrupted us because we had 4 tons of vanilla in stock, and we had a write down of 1 point some million because we just couldn't sell it. When the market crashes, it's the worst thing because nobody buys anything except for the gourmet. The gourmet continues, but no, my business could not survive on gourmet alone. We're just, we have too many things going on. So, and this is all because of the 4-year growing cycle I talked about before. Because what happens is when there is a shortage, they will plant, and they plant like crazy, but it takes 4 years. So by the time all their vanilla vines start to give, the market's already starting to go down. And that's what happened in 2016, 17. All these new vines started to come into play. Bam, the market starts to go down. The only reason the market didn't crash like it did in 2004, in 2016, 17, 18, is because the government of Madagascar implemented a minimum export price. I won't get into that. It's complicated, but there was a way around it for the locals, but it involved buying a lot of foreign currencies, and it increased the cost of exporting vanilla. And then, of course, COVID. COVID was a boon for vanilla because everybody stayed home and cooked, and the demand for extract and beans went through the roof. So that also occurred while the prices were falling. So that kind of de-accelerated I was going to say slowed down, but that's terrible grammar. But it de-accelerated the process of prices falling until about last year, when we were around $100 a kilo. And then suddenly Madagascar last year had a huge crop. This year, again, another huge crop. And boom, we're back down to what I call sub $50 a kilo vanilla. How long it stays this low is anybody's guess, because there's a lot of vanilla out there right now. I don't see any signs of speculation. We do have professional speculators that come in from time to time, buy up huge quantities, stick it in a warehouse. Vanilla has a shelf life of up to 10 years, even longer if you know what you're doing, if you know how to store it, and they just wait. They just wait. But vanilla can get really cheap before it goes back up again, and it can stay low long. So, I'm trying to encourage the government of Madagascar to buy locally. I'm trying to encourage them to speculate on their own product to stabilize the market and perhaps make a very nice profit for their country, which is extremely poor.
Like maple syrup?
Kind of like maple syrup, like they do in France, like like they do with oil, for example. If there's an oversupply, you buy, and you're the principal producing country of that commodity, which is oversupplied. It's in your interest to buy it locally, store it, stabilize the market, and then if you can, wait and sell it at a higher price later. Why not? It's your product, it's your country. Why not do that? And if they buy it locally, they don't even have to use US dollars. They can use the local Malgache area, which they can get as much as they want of.
Are they listening to you? Are they? They're not receptive?
They don't think long term. They can't think that way. It's too bad. But I've seen foreign companies, American and European, do exactly that. Buy a bunch of vanillas. We help them. Stick it in a warehouse. Some of them did okay. Most of them, they can't wait. When the price of vanilla doubles or triples, they sell. But the ones who wait and are patient, like the Indonesians, who are the most notorious gamblers I've ever met, they end up getting 20 times their money, but they got to wait like 7 or 8 years. Okay, who cares? 7 or 8 years, 20 times their money is still pretty good.
Have you been to Madagascar, of course?
Every year, except for the COVID years.
Tell me about that country.
Well, I can only think of Anthony Bourdain when he did the special on Madagascar. Did you see that one by any chance?
I have not.
Okay.
I haven't either, which is odd.
Well, probably because it wasn't one of his greatest episodes. It was a bit depressing, actually. He didn't leave the main city, which is actually very. Antananarivo is you were back in the dark ages when you go there, man. It's unbelievable. And we don't have to go there anymore. I used to stay in a hotel in Antananarivo, the main capital. And let me just say very quickly, Madagascar is one of the poorest countries in the world. But in my opinion, it's relatively safe. The people are fantastic. They're incredibly good-humored considering their situation. But the government, anyway, I'll leave it at that. That country should be doing way better than it's doing. So anyway, it's a super interesting country. It was pillaged a lot by the colonialists, the French and everything. I mean, they 90% of the precious hardwoods have been harvested. There's a lot of erosion on the interior, but it's a gorgeous country. And once you get out of the city and into the countryside, you see a lot of things there you don't see anywhere else in the world. For tourism, it does really well, but it should be doing better. It could be doing much, much better. It's really a fascinating place, and you can get things done there relatively cheaply. And the biggest danger in Madagascar are the mosquitoes. And there's not a lot of mosquitoes, not like Quebec in the springtime, but they can kill you because of malaria. So you got to take precautions for that. Well, not just malaria, but all the mosquito-borne. But the people themselves are wonderful. Now, of course, in the city at nighttime, you don't walk around, obviously. You stay in your neighborhood. It can be dangerous because people are poor. They are desperate. And they do weird stuff, man, where they're desperate. You will, if you go to Madagascar once, you have to go to the city just to see it. But I've seen it many times. I don't need to see it anymore. I know it's there. They're trying.
And when you go there, it's to do business, it's to purchase, it's to.
Oh no, we go there to meet our partners primarily because you have to have a very strong partnership with your suppliers in Madagascar. I mean, it took years to develop these partnerships, and we're lucky that we have a relationship with our suppliers that, we don't have to send them any money. It's all built on trust. If they tell me the quality is good, I believe them. We want to go see every year, if possible, what the new crop is bringing in terms of quality. Our partners like it when we meet with them. I have a very, very good supplier right now that I know. A lot of my customers also work directly in Madagascar. They don't need me to buy vanilla in Madagascar. I believe we can do a very good job of getting their vanilla, and we can protect them from a lot of the uncertainty that exists in Madagascar. But nevertheless, a lot of the industrials say, screw you, we don't need a middleman, we're going to go direct. Some do both. They want to keep all their options open because they never know what's going to happen.
Is it a problematic product a little bit like coffee and chocolate? Somehow is the farmer basically getting screwed a little bit in the end? I'm not throwing shade. I'm well aware of coffee. I'm well aware of the problems with coffee. I'm well aware of the problems with cocoa. I'm just not aware of anything.
Is there fair trade vanilla?
Yes. Yeah, there's fair trade vanilla. Yeah, we sell fair trade. We sell organic. Rainforest Alliance. That's, in my opinion, a little bit too much because vanilla is a very forest-friendly product. You don't have to cut down trees to grow vanilla. In fact, you need Tudor trees to grow vanilla. In a semi-forested, you don't see giant vanilla plantations. Everybody avoids the giant plantation because they're all scared of fusarium, which travels underground through the roots. And like I said, if you get fusarium, you're done. So most of the farmers will have multiple locations, but it is a small family farm type of crop in Madagascar. There's probably 100,000 or more farming families who produce vanilla. It's extremely important for the Northeast. When times are tough, the farmer definitely feels the brunt of it. Green vanilla price this year, if they're lucky, they're going to get $1.25 a kilo for green. Okay, if they're lucky. The government is always trying to institute a minimum price to pay the farmer in Madagascar, which is a very noble thing to do, but it's impossible to enforce unless they digitally register each farmer, which they are incapable of doing. They just don't have the resources. So, okay, you can't do that. Try to do something else. And that they do other things by imposing a $4 a kilo export tax. That money is supposed to go back into the vanilla trade to help it. Don't ask me where that money's gone so far. If you read my last vanilla report, which is online, you will see I made a suggestion that what they might do with it. I'm not very popular with the Madagascar government, even though I don't criticize them directly. I never do. Sometimes I make suggestions they don't like.
What's this vanilla newsletter?
We'll post a link. It's on his website. You have a blog.
Yeah, on my website, all my vanilla reports. It's a very general report. A lot of my smaller customers appreciate just telling them what's going on in Madagascar, what we see, what we expect. They're all there. They're pretty consistent. We don't try to predict the future or anything, but we're also quite frank and honest. And when games are being played, we call them out sometimes. Like when the government of Madagascar tried to institute a minimum export price of $250 a kilo, but the price on the ground was only $100 a kilo. Nobody paid $250. They just found a way. I won't explain
around it.
There was a way to get around it, legal way to get around it, which involved buying a lot of foreign currency. Because one of the big rules in Madagascar, as far as vanilla is concerned, is when you export vanilla and you get paid in foreign currency, you are required within 90 days to repatriate that foreign currency into local Malgache currency. That's how they kind of keep their economy afloat. Yeah. So when the government of Madagascar said minimum price $250, well, the exporter just said, okay, I'm going to sell you at $100. I'm going to go buy $150 a kilo of foreign currency off the black market. And when it comes time to repatriate, I will in fact repatriate $250. So the government's happy. My client's only paying $100. He's happy. And that's it. That's how they did it. But only the exporters who had the cash flow were able to do this. So it really, anyway, if I get into all these little intricacies, this will go on forever. So it
is on your blog, and it's a very passionate blog. No, the blog is fantastic. I've been reading it for years, and it's really, there's so much information there. I also want to ask you, the New York Times wrote a story when vanilla was very expensive.
Yes.
A lot of people in Madagascar got very rich very quickly. And they were talking about how these people coming from one of the poorest countries in the world suddenly handled this money that came to them, but it must have been pulled away the years later.
Well, this is it, okay? Yes, today the vanilla farmer is getting nothing practically for the hard work, and it is hard work to grow vanilla. The only good thing about it is there's no theft anymore, so they don't have to sleep in their plantations at night to make sure because it takes 9 months for that vanilla to mature.
And have armed guards? There were some armed guards in the...
Yeah, because when the prices were high, people would start, it takes 9 months to mature, but you can harvest 3 months early and still make a viable product, and that's all. And all that pre-financing I talked about earlier by the industrials, that was encouraging early picking. No, the farmer definitely feels the brunt of it today. But when the vanilla price is high, the farmer gets $50 or $60 a kilo for his green vanilla suddenly. And you're right. Guys who don't know how to read or write, girls too, who have been living a life, suddenly have a fortune for what is, and because for the most part, some of them don't squander it all away, but for the most part, because of the lack of education, I mean, they spend it on crazy stuff. You know, big screen TVs when they only have 2 solar panels, multiple motorbikes, jewelry,
Jeeps,
usual wine, liquor, girls, you name it, whatever, you know, and you see that. But there's always a few that are smart. They invest in their kids, they buy a better home, those farmers go on to become collectors. And then the collector, when he does the same thing, he goes on to become an exporter. Many exporters, they can trace back through generations that, you know, my grandfather was a vanilla farmer. Now I'm an exporter. So there is opportunity when the prices get really high, but it becomes very dangerous too at the same time. So the farmer, it's boom and bust. It's not continuous exploitation like you might see in cocoa. It's literally boom or bust, or some happy medium in between, which would be about $100 to $150 a kilo. That's the price that everybody feels is fair for everybody. And sometimes we fall in that range, but vanilla is volatile. It's always been volatile.
Is vanilla like chocolate in the way that the vanilla farmers aren't aware how people use it? Because there are all these videos on YouTube that you see of cocoa farmers and somebody hands them a chocolate bar and they go, oh, this is what they do with it. You know, is that the same? Will people cook with vanilla in Madagascar?
The average vanilla farmer doesn't have a kitchen. So yeah, okay. they probably are pretty surprised to see things.
They're not making ice cream at home.
No.
Right,
they're cooking mostly over charcoal or a fire. But eventually but when you go into a vanilla exporter's home in Madagascar, and because of the French influence in Madagascar, the food generally tends to be really good, even when you can be in the most countryside village and there's fresh yogurt, fresh baguette. They know how to cook seafood properly and things like that. So you will see, and this is what really disappointed me about the Bourdain show. He stayed in the capital where you see the worst of Madagascar. Like any country, you go to the big city. I mean, you go to Nigeria, if you hang around in Lagos the whole time, you're not going to have a great time. Same in Madagascar. But once you get into the countryside or smaller towns, then it's a whole different ballgame. And he never did that. And when you go into the vanilla region and you start eating in people's homes who've been in the business for a long time, and they have local people who cook and they know how to cook, man, you eat well. And I've had lobster with a vanilla cream sauce that was outrageously delicious. They will mix and pair vanilla with all sorts of savory dishes that people don't do here, like a skirt steak and a green peppercorn creamy vanilla sauce. It sounds weird, but it's fantastic. And so they're very aware of how to use vanilla. Very.
Okay.
They all make their own ice cream and stuff like that.
I've never once cooked vanilla in a savory fashion. It's kind of interesting.
Well, with lobster, it's a classic.
Yeah, but I've never had it or wanted to cook it, you know?
Yeah, I know it's weird. It's a bit of a mind bend. Good scallops too, very good. But they down there they really take it to the next level. I mean, it's so plentiful and cheap. You do see a lot of experimentation doing. It's very nice. It's very nice.
Can you talk about when you're talking about green vanilla beans? So are you saying that does the farmer then ferment them? Do they treat them, or is it given to somebody else for the second process?
No, the farmers treat it. And I mean, you know that in my office, I have these things growing. These are all vanilla vines. Okay.
Yes. Vanilla vines in his office. Yes.
So yeah, no, the green vanilla, like I said, at maturity starts to turn a bit yellow. Sometimes it'll split. That'll be the split vanilla beans. And then in Madagascar, they don't do this at every origin. Madagascar, they have the blanching, and they put the green vanilla beans in hot water, not boiling, 65 degrees centigrade to stop the enzyme process. And then they start curing almost immediately. If they don't start curing immediately, the beans will start to mold. So, and that's when you have, usually, I mean, that can vary from farmers can do curing, collectors can do curing. And very quickly, a collector, by the way, I didn't mention, because a lot of these farmers are located in very isolated communities. So you need this network of collectors that go into these isolated communities and bring the vanilla into the more populous communities where it's subsequently sold to the exporters. Now, this whole chain, depending on what's going on in the market, can vary. Farmers will do their own curing. Collectors sometimes will do their own curing if they see an advantage. Exporters will do their own curing, in particular if they're exporting organic or fair trade vanilla, where they have to be able to prove the origin right to the farmers. So if you want to do, because the organic stuff is very tightly controlled now. The regulations were a bit of a joke 30 years ago. Somebody could just write on a piece of paper, organic here. You want organic? That's not the case anymore. And they test the soil. Europe is very strict now with chemicals and pesticides. So the exporter sometimes will have to buy directly from the farmer green vanilla, and they will do the curing. But that will only be for their organic portion, which might represent 5 or 10% of their business. Bulk of their vanilla they're going to buy from collectors, which could be partially cured vanilla, and they'll finish it themselves, or fully cured from collectors.
How long is the process?
The entire process, from the moment they pollinate the flower to from that moment, vanilla pollination to maturity is 9 months, and then curing to maturity for the lower grade extraction is about 3 to 4 months. For the higher grade extraction, 5 to 6, and for gourmet, 6 to 8 months for proper curing and maturation. Now, having said that, and once again, this is all because of when you get into this super crazy expensive market, there's something in Madagascar that we call faux noir, or fake black vanilla. They also call it Vaza vanilla. Vaza is the term for white person. In other words, a sucker's vanilla. And what they do is they partially cure, because industrial vanilla, when it's partially cured, it still looks black, right? It's only when you go into the sun drying and the sweating process that they start to change colors. You can hold that black color under a vacuum pack indefinitely, but you have to vacuum pack the partially cured vanilla. And then you sell that vanilla in a vacuum pack as black vanilla to an unsuspecting buyer. And then, of course, that unsuspecting buyer, and I have been that unsuspecting buyer in the past, I don't make that mistake anymore. You bring that vanilla in, looks great in the vacuum pack, nice and plump and black, but the only reason it's plump is because it hasn't been properly dried. You open it up, it's kind of got this funny smell. In a week, it's a moldy mess. It's a disaster. And that happens quite often when prices are extremely high. Vacuum packing never existed in vanilla when I first started. Now it's everywhere. And we discourage it like crazy. It's not a bad thing to do at the end of the process if the vanilla is properly dried and cured, but unfortunately they do it in the middle of the process sometimes, and it creates a mess.
How does it work with Health Canada and all that and importing? Is that difficult or complicated or fairly straightforward? And how often do you have to send vanilla to irradiation? I only ask that because I visited an irradiation plant up in Laval once. I found it quite interesting that I was very unsuspecting of how much of our food actually goes through that irradiation plant. And the process is just fascinating.
You must have visited Nordion.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's just say there's not that many irradiation plants in North America for obvious reasons.
But it's amazing. Like, I didn't know that, so many like apricots, figs, so many of our nuts, raisins, so many things go through that plant.
Listen, the irradiation is, first of all, it's not permitted in Europe. The Japanese don't want to hear about it either. In North America, it's still accepted. But again, there's this, look, when you bring in stuff from Africa or developing countries, you got to deal with stuff, whether it's pathogens, whether it's mold, whether it's insects, and there are different ways. The old school way was fumigation. Ethylene oxide or methyl bromide, both proven carcinogens. And for years, that was the way to do it. We even did that ourselves in the beginning. It's still legal.
Yeah, crazy.
It's still legal.
I found a dead monkey once in a box of bananas when I worked in the fruits and vegetable business.
Wow.
For real. I was like, what the hell is this? It was like this little thing. It was a dead monkey.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah. So, you'll have all arguments on both sides of the equation. None of our clients will accept fumigation anymore. Irradiation, yes, it's incredibly safe. They do it at very, very low levels. But of course, you have to count on Nordion to do the right job. The process of irradiation is very technical. All the boxes have to be uniform. Everything has to be packed a certain way. And whatever, they can mess up. And that's what people are always worried about. What if they mess up? Yeah, if they mess up, but they don't. It's very controlled, they're very strict. And it is the cleanest and safest way to clean your food. But again, a lot of jurisdictions don't accept it. Canada Food Inspection Agency does accept it, but you have to put a symbol somewhere on the packaging stating that you've done it. Fumigation, like I said, it's not illegal, but it's pretty well done, I think. They don't do it anymore in Europe. It's getting more and more strict, which I think is a good thing, although it's a pain in the butt in the food industry when it comes to all of the wonderful little chemicals and pesticides. I mean, we have a standard chemical pesticide test that covers 700 different compounds, that the Japanese insist on for the vanilla. And then there's heavy metals. That's a whole different ball game too. And we did actually detect, we stopped it before it got anywhere near the food chain, a salmonella in vanilla once.
Interesting.
Right.
Well, we found out why too. And this was during the crisis. We were buying vanilla from Uganda from this guy who was, anyway, we don't buy from him anymore. But this guy had a chicken farm too. And unfortunately, his chicken farm and his vanilla operation were a little too close to each other. And we found out that workers were going back and forth from the chicken farm to the vanilla preparation, blah, blah, blah. And that explained why we found salmonella.
Wow.
And as a result of that, we had to do some drastic, but irradiation took care of that right away.
But so if the Europeans don't accept fumigation or irradiation, what do they do to their vanilla beans?
Steam sterilization.
Oh, and why wouldn't we do that here?
We do that here.
Oh, we do both. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not aware of any company in Canada, but there is a company in the States that does it. It's not 100% effective, but it's good.
We do it with vines, actually, grapevines. When grapevines are imported into Canada from the European Union or the USA, now they have to be steam treated for possible pathogens and all that.
It doesn't kill them?
Well, it close to kills them, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah, we've had issues with all the vineyards in my area have had issues, or all the newer vineyards seem to have had issues over the last few years of the European vines that are steam treated before putting in the ground. You'll have, let's say, a higher mortality rate, right? You might lose like 20% of the vines out of which sucks. Whereas if you buy vines that are propagated in Ontario, they're, the survival rate's like basically 100%, right?
Is the steam treatment done in Europe?
No, it's done here. Yeah, so they're allowed to receive the vines into their warehouses. Then they have to steam treat according to the specifications, and then they're allowed to ship.
My understanding is it goes to very high heat.
Yeah. It's basically they boil them.
Right. Oh.
Vanilla has no problem with that, but because when after the treatment we have to repackage the vanilla because there's a lot of condensation that's created in the boxes.
You're making me think of sometimes that I've gotten some vanilla beans in sous vide and I open them up and I get this funky smell that I was maybe one of I've had the white people sucker vanilla or... No.
Okay. That's normal. That should go away after a little while. Even here when I receive, look, all the gourmet vanilla that we receive from Madagascar comes from suppliers that we really trust. I have many suppliers I would never buy black vanilla from because they don't do the process correctly. And that really is the younger generation in Madagascar. They find black vanilla too complicated, too long, blah, blah, blah. And so you really have to know who you're buying from. But vacuum packing, they insist on it, which is fine. If the vanilla is mature going in, it's fine. Take it out of the vacuum pack, put it into a Ziploc, let it breathe a bit. It's kind of like a funny odor that the plastic can sometimes get. I have one supplier. He puts wax paper inside the vacuum pack so the vanilla never touches the plastic.
Wow.
Yeah, but he's old school. It was his company that was actually on the cover of the New York Times when they did that story.
All right.
He was so embarrassed by it because these guys are low key, man. They don't like a lot of publicity. and it was an unauthorized photo. But anyway, he's always a bit more expensive. I mean, he ties his bundles in raffia,
Right.
which is kind of shunned upon because that can create mold because raffia is like a living organism, so, but man, he does good stuff.
So you, just for people to know, you are not selling vanilla outside. People aren't walking to your office. You are distributing to other people if they're buying the gourmet vanilla. But if people want to buy vanilla that came through you, I have seen tubes from your company in the supermarket. What about Costco? Now, Costco, they were selling vanilla also. Is that a place?
Costco. No. Well, I got to be careful what I say now, of
Right,
course.
right.
Because, during the crisis, you may not have noticed, but Costco, they switched their vanilla to Papua New Guinea vanilla during the last crisis. Then they quietly switched back to Madagascar. You're talking about the big glass tube with 5. Look, they sell it at a good price. I know the supplier. They buy it out of the States. They've got a whole kind of tube packaging thing set up that fits perfectly on a skid. I have supplied vanilla to the supplier who supplied Costco. And we had an incident with them during the crisis, once again, when black vanilla was not very good quality, and we supplied them vanilla, and they packed several 100,000 glass tubes, and the vanilla started to mold once it was inside the tubes.
Oof.
And we had to take it all back and throw it all away.
Oh,
It was a friggin' disaster.
terrible.
We lost that account at that, and I said, you know what? I can't be bothered with this.
Right.
They move according to the price. Costco has to, they can't be too expensive. So when they have Madagascar vanilla, I can't say anything wrong about it. It's good. It's a good quality. Their extract, it's not bad. I know who supplies their extract as well. They buy the cheapest beans, of course, because they have to come in at a certain price. But our glass tubes, you will find them at all the markets. They're buying from distributors. Now, it's not easy to get into supermarkets in Canada because I remember seeing our glass tubes in the Provigo and Westmount for years. Then suddenly they just disappeared. Now you can't even buy vanilla beans. Imagine in the Metro in Westmount Canada. And I say to myself, how come, And so now we're going to start, especially with this whole tariff shit and everything in the US, we're going to do a whole new refocus on the Canadian market. That's why we're bringing out our own extract to see if we can get more out of the Canadian market, because I don't think we're doing a very good job, because I know.
You have a Shopify kind of thing? You have like an online store?
Well, we're looking at that too. I could crucify. I see what's online now. I don't know what these guys are thinking. They're working on margins that are out. Vanilla should not be so expensive right now. That's the bottom line. It's very affordable.
Well, yeah, there's so many. It's really difficult right now on Amazon and all these things because there's so many people stepping on things, right? You can open a store by selling the product that somebody else is stepping on. So now, it's bizarre, right?
Yeah, I've seen vanilla beans for $18 a bean.
Oh, no, I know. There's still this conception out there, but I look, I can tell you right now, I don't mind sharing this information. We sell our glass tubes right now. We just dropped the price again. And by the way, we put a new 15, 16 centimeter length now too. They're longer, they're nicer. And it says Madagascar. People complain, if you say bourbon, it's people don't understand. That's true. That's a good point. But you have to buy one case, which is 500 tubes. So it's not, a typical store, that would be a lot for them. But we sell a glass tube with 2 vanilla beans in it at $2.50.
Okay. That's not what we're paying for vanilla.
Okay, no. But I'm saying you can mark that up 50% twice and retail it for $5.99. But I'm not seeing that. Because
David, let's buy a case and sell Salt Lake vanilla beans. Yeah.
No, but he's right, though. You have to look at when I was in when we used to sell the Joe Beef spices and all that, I would see, let's say, for example, the Joe Beef steak spice, anywhere from $9 to $14 in grocery stores. But I know that I was selling it to the distributor for basically under $2 a bottle, right? And my commission, my 5% commission on my steak spice was based on the $1.95 sales price. So I was getting 5% of $1.95, but then my steak spice was $13 at the grocery store, right? I was just like, this is bizarre, But it goes back to the same example of like a $10 bottle of wine, right? A $10 bottle of wine at the SAQ. The most expensive part of a $10 bottle of wine
It's the bottle.
a case of is the bottle. The second is the cork. The third is the label. The fourth is the box. And the least expensive part of a $10 bottle of wine in a case is the wine.
Yeah, well, you know what? We're listed now with Bulk Barn, our glass tubes. They buy every week, and they retail at a very fair price.
What if you wanted to buy, let's say you want to buy a bundle? You know, the one wrapped in raffia, your beautiful bundles. Can you do it through your website? Do you sell more?
No, we don't sell. We don't do any online sales. That's a whole different pivot for us. We've done all the paperwork. We would be competitive. And we even set up, in the States, because, of course, all these small packages would go in bulk to Champlain, New York, and then from there to the final.
Oh, boy.
But it would involve, but we would have to engage a different...
Tariffs too, eh? What about tariffs?
Well, yeah, we haven't talked about that yet. Tariffs are a nightmare for us. Mr. Trump wanted to put 47% on Madagascar, and they pulled that back, but maybe he's going to reimpose that. And we'll see about that, because Madagascar, the Trump mentality is, if you're not buying from us, we're not going to let you sell our products here, right? That's the basic tribal mentality. And so when they look at the numbers, they see, oh, look, hey, wait a second. Madagascar exported $800 million of stuff to the United States. Vanilla, cocoa, coffee, all expensive items. And they didn't buy anything from us. Screw that. 47% on Madagascar.
They have no money.
Let me tell you something about Madagascar. Vermont has a population of 600,000. Their GDP is 45 billion, okay? Madagascar has a population of 38 million people. Their annual GDP is 15 billion, 1/3 of Vermont's, okay? They are one of the poorest countries in the world. What the hell are they going to buy from the U.S.?
The flat screen TVs when they make money.
Yeah, no, those don't come from the States. They come from China. No, they buy all their stuff from China because that's the only stuff they can afford. And that's why China dominates the whole African market is dominated by China because of this ridiculous man. Anyway, don't get me going on that, okay, please.
But I do have a question about the tariffs. Let's say, okay, so if the United States is imposing tariffs on Madagascar, Canada is not, or...
No, we're not.
You're buying directly from Madagascar, so these tariffs do not affect you until you sell it back to the States.
Right. My country of origin is still Madagascar, so right. I'm the, but the 10%, the baseline tariff of 10% still applies. Most of my clients are cool with it, but some of my clients are real jerks, and they go, well, maybe we should share the tariff. And I'm like, hello, this is your president, this is your law. What the hell? I'm not sharing anything.
Right. Good for you.
Yeah, but I don't say it exactly that way because
right.
Clients. But no, some of them were. We had a couple of deliveries that were late, and if they were late after the tariffs, the client said, "Look, man, you're late. Tariffs on you." In that case, we had to eat them. We had no choice. But not all of our clients. Some of our clients are very understanding, but the 47%, that's a different story.
But that could be an advantage for you because as a Canadian importer, an American importer would have to pay that huge tariff. Whereas as a Canadian importer, you don't. So you're not going to pay.
No, but as soon as I sell it to the U.S. where I make 80% of my sales, Lesley, then I...
Oh, sorry.
No, so it doesn't really... It's a dumb tariff any way you cut it. I'm sorry.
Right. And very unfair to pastry chefs of this world to see this happening. And vanilla...
It's
more unfair to the people of Madagascar who are just trying to friggin' survive.
Absolutely. Good point. Yeah. Oh, there's somebody somewhere I've been reading about that they're growing vanilla beans in greenhouses. Ridiculous. You'd have to have you need so many.
Look, there's people growing vanilla. As you can see from my office, it's not that hard to grow vanilla. It's not hard. It's not difficult. It takes a long time. Once it gets going, I mean, these vines are tough as hell, man. I can't believe it. And some of the weird things they're doing. You can actually suspend a vanilla vine in midair with not even in the ground, and it'll continue to grow because it's all air roots.
Like an orchid. Well, it's an orchid, of course.
Yeah, but it probably won't flower. But anyway, whatever. I know a lady who's involved in this project. They thought that they could figure out a way to grow when the price was extremely high. They could grow like a super vanilla using genetics and splicing and this and that. And we can get our vanilla vines to flower in 2 years instead of 4, double the production, indoor this, indoor that, lots of technical stuff based on vanilla at $400 or $500 a kilo. Well, today vanilla is $40 or $50 a kilo. How does that model work now? Not so well. So, and that's just one aspect. The other aspect is what I told you before, right? So 6 vines per kilo of cured. So 60 vines for 10 kilos. 600 vines for 100 kilos, 6,000 vines for 1 ton, and 100 tons would be 600,000 vines. So 1,000 tons would be 6 million vines. How many vines do you think you can grow in a typically large greenhouse?
Yeah.
1,000 if you're lucky. I mean, maybe on the genetic side, they'll do something. I don't know. But vanilla in greenhouses is fine for artisanal growth, for tourists, local consumption, whatever. On an industrial level, forget it. Impossible.
I'm surprised nobody in Quebec, Lufa Farms, I'm surprised they haven't started vanilla on the roof of their, no, impossible.
4 years before you get your first fruit? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Tomatoes are much better.
They're turning over tomatoes like 3 times a year, man. Come on.
And tomatoes are expensive now too, so watch it. Yeah.
So no, indoor growing, forget it. It's a non-starter. You need that sun. Plus, you need the sun too. You need the sun drying is very critical.
And the know-how of the curing too. I mean, and the experience of these people. We should respect their culture, their experience, their crop in a way.
Yeah, no. It's one of those things. Look, it's not. You like I said, you could do it in a limited fashion, but never commercially viable. No.
Wow. Well, thank you this has been fascinating.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me talk a lot. My throat is dry from all this blabbing. Sorry.
No, now I want to go to Madagascar with you and see these incredible vanilla plantations. Again, for everybody, this is David Vanderwald, director of Aust Hachmann. You also sell to Japan and North America, correct? That's your market?
Yes, correct.
Here in Montreal, Quebec. What a treat. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck, David, with your ventures.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Another word. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Be well.
Thanks so much for listening to us today on the Salt Lick Podcast. You can always reach us at saltlickpodcast@gmail.com with any questions or comments. You can also follow us on Instagram on Salt Lick Podcast. And don't forget, if you can ever give us a star rating on any of our podcast platforms, it will help people find the podcast. And unlike Michelin that likes 3 stars, we really like 5. Take care.
ThinkBait. TNKR Media. Good talk.